This video is sponsored by my Patreon. Become a Patreon member today. We're supposed to be talking about psychological patriarchy. However, part of me deconstructing my psychological patriarchy is, como se dice, being myself. Which is why you're going to see me singing for the next 30 seconds. In Portuguese. Desejar a palavra jamais fica amba a neblina, fumaça colorida pra te celebrar. I'm taking so many notes from the Artisan Geek right now because look at this fit that I'm wearing. Look at the fit. Look at the sweater. Look at the kaftan underneath. Giving you everything that you needed. What are you talking about? I'm trying to like showcase that 4C hair doesn't have to exist in like a certain array of styles, especially for men, where you can just only wear your hair like this. So I'm trying to give y'all a little swoop bang action here. I don't dislike it, which is why this is what you'll be seeing in this video. Amen, hallelujah. Also, full disclaimer, if I use AAVE in this video, I did it on purpose. I do know how to speak standard white American English. You're on my channel currently, masculine black lens. You're gonna hear AAVE, just know. This video was inspired by Garrett Bell. In one of his videos, he shared a passage that rubbed me so wrong, so I had to make a video about it because I was like, ain't no way you finna hurt me like this and we just gonna continue on like you can just say what you just said. By the way, this is not at all shade to Garrett in any way, shape, or form. Garrett and his content are both amazing and he puts a lot of time and dedication into his work, so you should actually go ahead and check his channel out. But he was reading this quote and I'm just gonna read it to you. I'm just gonna read it to you because it triggered me. This is an age where you should be comfortable wearing a, presumably, suit jacket more often than not, wearing leather shoes instead of sneakers, and tying your own tie without thinking about it. You should have a haircut that can go before a board meeting or a judge with no more preparation than a quick combing. Anyways, moving left and right along, little acknowledgements of adulthood like that are integral to looking like a man who's comfortable being who he is rather than missing what he was. Now, I don't know about you, but my IB literary analysis brain is jumping off of the walls right now. So let's go line by line and dissect this, shall we? Yes, I actually did go through this line by line and annotate, so I'm going to be looking at my notes for the duration of this part of the video. Line 1 through line 2. This is an age where you should be comfortable wearing a jacket more often than not. Wearing leather shoes instead of sneakers. I don't know about y'all, but my sneakers are made out of leather. Also, I don't think that we should ignore how integral shoes are in black culture, because I felt like that was pointed. But moving on. Line 2 through line 3. Tying your own tie without thinking about it. Now, we get into language that assumes the reader is a corporate employee, presumably a man. Line 3 through line 4. You should have a haircut that can go before a board meeting or a judge with no more preparation than a quick combing. Now, I don't know about you. Quick combing? Quick combing. I have 4C hair. I don't comb. I finger detangle. Line 5 through line 6. Little acknowledgements of adulthood, like this, are integral to looking like a man who's comfortable being who he is, rather than missing what he was. Now I'm gonna give some grace here, once again, because Garrett read this quote from like, wherever he read this quote. Like, it's not his own words. But these actions are not an acknowledgement of adulthood. They're an acknowledgement of conscious conformity. Even if you enjoy performing self in the way that the passage describes, at one point you have to acknowledge that you don't have that much of a choice, in corporate America at least. Especially if you've shown that you are more than capable of conforming to that set of standards. P.S. I know this is like a real side note, but The way that your hair looks in front of a judge when you're black don't really matter. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of the research or not, but like mountains of racial disparities, like mountains. Now, I'm going to make it a point to say that there is nothing in this text that makes it racialized, except for the blatant exclusion of black people. But, you know, that's neither here nor there when discussing this passage. The true purpose of this passage is to highlight, to set a standard, to outline. It is a physical description of what one should conform to as a male corporate employee of a certain age. Then the end hits and implies that a man not acting in this way is not comfortable being who he is. Why is it that this hypothetical man must give up things that he might love in order to be who he is? What if that's not him? Because it's sure not me. Huh? What now?
So,
no, I'm saying
what now?
This entire passage speaks to the utilization of performance in order for men to be seen as more valid. And yes, I mean that in both the dictionary way and the AAVE deserving of praise type way. Like, oh, he valid. Yes, I am, and don't you ever forget it. Terrence Real, writer of How Can I Get Through to You, says it best when he states, and I quote, "Traditional socialization teaches young boys to filter their sense of self-worth through performance. Because as a boy you were taught to put on a conscious performance of masculinity, it becomes difficult as an adult to sift through all of that performance and pinpoint what is actually you beneath those complex emotions hidden behind anger and indifference." And indifference is a big one. And that, my friends, is the effect of psychological patriarchy. And I absolutely remember feeding into this notion, being told to act like a man when I was 11 and 12 years old. I was told, whether verbally or non-verbally, to walk in a certain way, put some bass in your voice, and to talk about women like objects all the time, which, why? I also remember having like a knee-jerk aversion to this, because even as a child I was still sifting through the BS like a garbage collector. No. It was just very clear to see that in order to act like a man, you had to suppress parts of yourself and put on the performance of a person that I just didn't want to be. And honestly, and this is kind of but you know, I had been made fun of for so long just for being myself that I had already kind of stopped caring about other people's perceptions of my masculinity, which sounds sad, but it came in clutch. So like, what do I do with that information? Even though I couldn't quite put that into those exact words at that time. I'm glad that I was able to find the language to describe these complex emotions, because a lot of boys just don't. Like, they just don't find the language, and in turn they're never truly able to communicate those emotions until they are like much older, until they're full-grown men, when they are just learning to become emotionally mature human beings. And that's a completely different topic, but imagine the havoc that you wreak on society when you're not emotionally mature enough to communicate what you're feeling. That lack of language leads to a lot of men not knowing how to express their emotions in a healthy and conducive manner. And you already know I have to shout out reading, because it's fundamental. And honestly, it's probably the only thing that has kept me from becoming one of the men that I'm describing. That's a scary thought. Now, in my experience, I remember having, for the majority of my life, a friend group that was predominantly women. Because to me, they were the only people that acted like full human beings. So, I mean, it just made sense to hang around them all of the time. Because most of the dudes that I wanted to be friends with, except for one of them, shout out to him, he know who he is, he watched my videos. Blame me. They were just emotionally unavailable. It was really strange. But as we've stated previously, psychological patriarchy is pervasive, and it doesn't really make sense. I have only heard of the trope of a man having a bunch of friends that are women in the context of posing as a queer person in order to gain proximity to the women, in order to have sexual conquests, is the way that I'm going to say that. But not me though. This reality is true for anyone that just wants friends that are emotionally available. Terrence Real once again gets to the core of this matter in his discussion about the paradox of invulnerability. In order to prove themselves worthy of connection, boys must prove themselves invulnerable. Now, this story I'm about to tell you stays between us, because I ain't told nobody else. If you are my family watching, no you didn't. No you aren't. You don't exist. When I was around 7 or 8 years old, I nearly joined a gang because I wanted friends that were boys. I did, almost. I have this super distinct memory still to this day of the ringleader of this group of boys asking me, "Are you bad enough?" I have no other way to describe the feeling that shot through my body when he said that other than microaggression. Like, I don't know how else to describe, like, that's just the emotion that I felt. And I don't have the language to describe it as anything else right now, so that's what we're going with. This boy knew that all I did was read books, ride my bike, and play too much all day. He lived in the same place as me, and I knew that. I had seen him before. He had seen me before. But in the world of boys and men, you're either man enough or a girl. Shout out to Terrence Real, because the language that I acquired from this book, mwah. Hence why I chose, and continuously choose, might I add, to just stop caring. It's not worth it. Also, we can talk about all the things that the boys wanted me to do in order to prove my masculinity, but that's an entirely different conversation. That's probably going to happen on the Patreon, so make sure that you pledge today. And here's a shout out to the patrons because they're so great and they fund all the things on this channel, so you should become a patron. Okay. These are the cycles of invulnerability and barbarity that I see get perpetuated over and over again. I have seen multiple times how these cycles kill people. And I don't know about you, but I would rather get perceived as other than get caught up in all of that casual violence. Because it's not just emotional violence that's caused by patriarchy. It's physical violence as well. We see it in the normalization of boys just beating each other up. You hear me? Instead of actually having conversations like people with any sort of emotional maturity, we see it through the media, through the glorification of violence as a dispute resolver. Like, have you ever seen the marketing that goes into an MMA or a wrestling match?
Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Yes, sir.
Get the paperwork for this bum.
Get Al Hammond.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't need Al Hammond.
Oh my gosh, the beefs are just so epic for no reason at all. Like, do y'all know each other? Anyways, the unnecessary amount of beef that are between these two people that have literally never met before in real life is just... why? But most of all, for me, I see it in the constant urge that I have to improve my fighting skills. And this is not just because I watch a lot of anime.
Bad move. You're up next, big boy.
I have to be able to improve my fighting skills in order to better my protection against emotionally immature men who do not know how to have a conversation without pulling their fists out, who cannot have a conversation without blowing up after 3 seconds of having to actually critically think about their feelings. Because it wouldn't be the first time that an emotionally immature man tried to blow up and think that he was gonna beat my and lost. Try me if you want to. Unless you are double my size and actually have some martial arts training, you might just want to leave that alone, player. See, I'm even doing it right now just to make sure that people leave me alone. It's so pervasive. But hey, without all of those extremely traumatizing experiences with masculinity, I never would have started researching how to create a masculinity that solved more problems than it created. Then I wouldn't have stumbled across FD Signifier or Foreign Man in a Foreign Land or Emergency. And if I hadn't stumbled upon FD Signifier specifically, I don't think a lot of y'all would be watching me right now. So I guess it's all cumulative. I think that'll be all for today. I have once again victoriously completed another YouTube video, and until the next one, bye.